Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another new VR games roundup video. Today we are looking at one of the most exciting months of the year in terms of new VR releases, October 2023. Now I have tons to get through in this video. We've got 20 new games to look at and one piece of shiny new VR hardware to talk about as well. October is looking amazing. It's the most stacked month in a very long time, and things don't slow down now. November is also looking amazing and December is also looking incredible. The next 3 months are fantastic for VR owners, VR users, and I can't wait to showcase some of these games that are coming out very soon. Let's get into it. These are all the games we currently know about launching in October 2023. First up, on the 3rd of October, this absolute VR classic makes its way to PSVR2. Waltz of the Wizard is probably amongst a lot of VR users' very first VR experiences. It's a game that offers players a sandbox of interactivity, and it works beautifully as an onboarding experience for VR newcomers. You can play around with a wide array of magical objects in the Wizard's workshop, experimenting with different combinations and seeing what kind of chaos you can create, or you can embark upon dungeon crawling adventures with some of the most enjoyable spellcasting mechanics in all of VR. It's an oldie, but it's definitely still a goldie. Pixel Ripped 1995 launches an enhanced version for PSVR2 on the 3rd of October. Originally scheduled for last month, this one was delayed for a bit of last-minute polish. Now, if you grew up in the 90s with consoles like the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, then you owe it to yourself to experience this game. It will immediately transport you back in time and drop you into a digital world of retro gaming nostalgia. Now, this is easily my favourite of the Pixel Ripped series because it reflects my first real gaming experiences. I can still remember the Christmas I got my Mega Drive, and Pixel Ripped captures the feeling of being a kid and playing these 16-bit adventures for the first time perfectly. Dungeons of Eternity really surprised me. I went hands-on with this one recently, and I've been hopping in to do solo dungeon crawls for better gear a few times a week since. This is a genuinely enjoyable and replayable quest RPG that only gets better when you play with friends. The game has 3 different styles of dungeon crawling across a wide array of different locations and levels that you can tackle solo or with up to 2 friends. The characters are expressive, the loot is plentiful, the combat feels weighty, and the flow of the game is so much fun. Dungeons of Eternity is the kind of game the Quest was desperately missing, a dungeon crawling RPG with meaningful loot and a great foundation for multiplayer fun. It's launching on the 5th of October, and I massively recommend this one to anyone looking for a solid Quest title with hours of content. This month is actually pretty packed with PSVR2 re-releases and enhanced versions. The next game to receive that treatment is the original Red Matter. Launching on the 5th of October, this new version comes with a suite of upgrades that take advantage of the PSVR2 hardware. Better visuals, 4K textures, 90 FPS, better controls, and foveated rendering all bring this classic up to date with Sony's new VR hardware. And it means that both Red Matter games exist as their definitive versions on PSVR2, so you can play through the entire story now in the best way possible. Yet another PSVR2 port now, and another roguelike adventure game. We really do have lots of these in the VR medium. Ghost Signal is a VR action roguelike set in the Stellaris universe. You captain your ship to battle a multitude of alien species, partake in dynamic space wars, encounter planet-sized creatures, gather valuable loot to conduct research, and much, much more. No journey is the same in this roguelike space exploration adventure that launched onto the Quest platform back in March. Now, I never went hands-on with this one myself, but it currently sits with a 4.5-star rating on the Quest store, so sci-fi adventure exploration fans looking for a roguelike on PSVR2 should keep an eye on this one when it launches on the 5th of October. The biggest day of the month and potentially the entire year for VR users is October 10th, the launch of the much anticipated Quest 3, successor to the wildly popular Quest 2, and a new step forward in pushing standalone VR closer to the quality of PCVR. Now, the Quest 3 is shaping up very nicely. The hands-on time I've had showed me that Meta aren't messing around. Red Matter 2 on this new hardware looked incredible with dynamic shadows, better lighting, higher higher resolution and a general visual overhaul that made it look unlike anything I've ever seen on a standalone headset. Other games like Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners have also shown off their upgrades on Quest 3, and they look equally as impressive. Fingers crossed this is just the start of a new era of standalone VR quality, and we can start to move past the watered down low quality Quest 2 ports that have dominated the landscape for a few years. Let me know down in the comments if you'll be picking up a Quest 3, I am genuinely interested to know. I might be massively out of touch, but I'm pretty sure Angry Birds are well past their prime. I can remember when flinging these weird little creatures around was the height of gaming culture, but I can also remember the day that everyone kind of collectively stopped caring. Either way, they are back in yet another re-release for PSVR 2 on the 10th of October that lets you physically pull back and release the birds from their slingshot in a range of increasingly difficult levels and challenges. No doubt a great little game for younger VR players or those who are new to the VR medium. Tennis and VR should go hand in hand, but I don't feel like there has been the definitive VR tennis experience as of yet. We do have C Smash for a futuristic spin mixed with Breakout, and 11 is the absolute height of VR table tennis, but no one VR tennis experience stands out as the definitive one. This month we have a new contender, Tennis on Court for PSVR 2, and to be honest, from this trailer it doesn't look like it's going to set the world on fire. Now I could be wrong, but all the gameplay here seems to take place from a static position at the very back of the court. No running forward to execute a little drop shot at the net or sprinting back to catch a lob at the last second. We need a tennis game that gives us the freedom to move all over the court. This might be that game, but the trailer certainly doesn't portray it in that way. Alright, now we're talking. As we move into the second half of October, things really start to heat up with some of the year's very best VR experiences, starting with The Seventh Guest. This brand new reimagining of the CDI classic is shaping up wonderfully. Gorgeous environments, slick VR mechanics, deviously difficult puzzles, and some amazing live action performances blended into the VR world make this the most exciting VR horror puzzler of 2023. I for one cannot wait to revisit The Seventh Guest. It's clear that Vertigo have lovingly crafted this from a place of respect for the original material and have managed to bring it up to date for the modern era. I'll be live streaming this one at launch, so if you want to watch someone struggle intensely with puzzles that probably have fairly simple solutions, then stick around. I never like to see a VR game, or any game for that matter, be sent out to its death, but I fear that may be the fate awaiting Snow Wars. A multiplayer snowball fighting experience in VR is a great idea on paper, but when it looks like it just about rivals the free experiences you can find in Rec Room, Horizons, or even Roblox, it's going to be a hard sell to the potential target audience in 2023. We have so many free multiplayer experiences that I feel for any developer aiming to make a paid-for multiplayer-only game on this already niche platform. If Snow Wars launches as a free game, there's a chance it could find some players, but if it has a price tag, I fear it may already be curtains for this one. Dungeon Full Dive is less of a game and more of a tool designed to facilitate more immersive Dungeons & Dragons campaigns. It's a VR experience that allows D&D parties to load in, create a character, build a map or use one of the supplied presets, and then play out their D&D campaign within the virtual world, complete with dice rolling, character building, and keeping on top of their stats. Some features, like allowing the DM to spawn in as any creature at the touch of a button to roleplay a character the players are encountering, is genius, and my only hope really is that modders can gain access to this game to add a wealth of models, customization options, and new map biomes. It's a novel idea, and I hope it does well with its intended audience when it launches into early access on the 23rd of October. The best VR game of 2023 is coming to PSVR 2. Now, if you've been clamoring for a decent single-player story-driven VR shooter, or maybe you've just been hoping and praying that Half-Life Alyx will make its way to the platform to no avail, then you need to pick up Vertigo 2 and make it a massive success over on Sony's VR device. Vertigo 2 is a smart, genuinely funny, lengthy VR shooter that takes players on a real journey, a journey through varied levels and worlds where you'll meet interesting characters, fight bizarre creatures, and handle some of the coolest VR weapons you've ever seen. This is the closest thing to a Half-Life VR experience on PSVR 2, and I can't wait to see how it runs with all the PlayStation specific features like adaptive triggers and the OLED screen. Vertigo 2 really is the best single player VR game I've experienced this year, and PSVR 2 owners are in for a treat. I have hovered over the buy button on Steam for this particular VR game more than a few times. It doesn't look like it's anything revolutionary, but its trailer and the creatures shown in it have been enough to almost tempt me into trying this one out. Bad Dreams is currently available on PSVR, but it will be getting a PSVR 2 update on the 24th of October, so it's another game on this list making the leap to PSVR 2. If you're looking for a spooky experience this Halloween, then it might be worth checking out. I do feel like it'll be a fairly typical horror adventure with all the typical tropes and stereotypes we see in these games, but there does seem to be some creative flair when it comes to the enemies, and by the looks of it, a few chase sequences that seem particularly horrific. I think this next game has the potential to be a stealthy hit this month. Amongst some of the big hitters like Ghostbusters, Seventh Guest and Vertigo 2, it might be Journey to Foundation that ends up surprising players the most. This is a brand new single player sci-fi adventure where your choices and actions impact the story and world around you. It's a role-playing adventure based on a hit book series of the same name, and I for one am very excited to dive in. The trailers have a hint of hubris mixed with the choice-based elements of the Telltale games or even the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. We don't have many VR games that allow the players the freedom to make choices which will impact the overall flow of the story. It's a gameplay feature prominent in most flat games, but VR seems to be missing the boat on these kinds of immersive experiences for some bizarre reason. So I'm glad that Journey to Foundation is here to fix that. Now, I've not read the source material, so I'll be going into this one blind, but the trailers and gameplay I've seen so far have me convinced this one could be a hit. Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghostlord is probably the most anticipated new VR title this month and might just be one of the biggest VR titles of the year. The brand power of Ghostbusters, combined with the VR chops of developers and Dreams, has the potential to give players something truly special. A replayable, multiplayer Ghostbusters experience designed from the ground up for virtual reality. Surely that's a dream come true. Now, more recent trailers have been a little polarizing for me. I do like the visual aesthetic, but I think I would have preferred something a little closer to the original Ghostbusters movies. We have a lot of cartoony looking VR games, and I'm really starting to feel the desire for something a little more gritty and realistic looking. However, Ghostbusters is clearly targeting a younger audience as well as the core fans of the original films, so this cartoony art style visual does make sense. The ghosts also look a little strange to me. They're almost more like germs or single-celled organisms than actual ghosts. It's a stylistic choice for sure, and one I'm not sure that I love. However, if the gameplay is solid enough, then these minor gripes will no doubt fade pretty fast. Not long until I can find out though, as Ghostbusters is launching on the 26th of October. I really love the look of this upcoming Quest experience. This is out of scale. It's a game that lets you play with the scale of various objects and creatures that you encounter. You explore the worlds within worlds around you from inside your mobile scale lab as you travel to 5 different levels of scale: molecular, bacterial, insect, human, and mountain. You're joined by Steve, the lab's AI assistant, who shows you the different effects of biology, physics, and chemistry in each realm. Together you'll scan objects, find hidden ducts, and observe science in action. The game takes place across 4 different missions, so I wouldn't expect a particularly long adventure, but I would get ready for a visually impressive one. Playing with the scale of items and environments is something I'd love to see more of in VR, as the medium has such great potential to really show us some amazing and mind-blowing things in this department. Now, I know that a lot of people are a little bit tired of VR roguelike shooters. I've seen the sentiment echoed a few times recently online, and I do understand it. We seem to be getting an absolute ton of VR rogues recently. I'm not sure what it is about that particular genre that translates so well to VR, but it probably has something to do with not needing to craft a coherent and linear story, and instead just building a game that leans into player experimentation and replayability. This year alone we've seen a slew of them, and a few really stellar ones have risen to the top, like Brigade and Synapse. However, I do love roguelike shooters, so I will always take more, especially when they have a cool western vibe, awesome enemy designs, and some sweet futuristic steampunk looking weapons. Foglands is another VR roguelike shooter, but it's one that I am very keen to get my hands on. It's got a lot going for it and it looks stylish enough to stand out from the crowd. It also has a flat screen option on PS5, which is a very smart move. Appealing to that wider gaming audience and not just VR users is a big brain play that has worked wonders in the past. Genotype is a new single-player action-adventure game set in a research station filled with bizarre alien creatures in the middle of the Antarctic. It's a gorgeous indie effort from developer Bulwark VR, and even in the very early state that it was in when I was lucky enough to go hands-on with it, I could see the potential here for something truly great. The star of Genotype is the Grade Glove, a living weapon that can 3D print various creatures onto your hand. Each of these creatures have different abilities, such as rapid firing a swarm of bees at enemies, or shooting a grappling hook to rip open doors, or perhaps just blasting balls of slimy acid at your foes. The game has a real Metroid Prime vibe to it, which I massively appreciate. Its environment and enemy designs feel heavily inspired by Nintendo's sci-fi staple, and I'm keen to see just how much has changed since my last hands-on experience with the game. It's great to see more meaningful story-driven experiences coming to VR, and Genotype looks like a high-quality addition to those available. There aren't many flat-screen games that can truly scare me anymore. Most of them just wash over me or manage to get the occasional cheap jump scare out of me thanks to some loud, unexpected noises. However, Madison is the exception to that rule. Madison scared the shit out of me, repeatedly and aggressively. It had some of the most painful and tense encounters of any horror game in recent memory, sections that were so filled with jump scares and encounters that it was genuinely difficult to push myself through. And now, I'm going to have to do it all again in VR. I don't think people are ready for how ridiculously terrifying this game is. It is an onslaught of jump scares and ridiculously terrifying encounters, and in VR, it's going to be on a whole new level. What a perfect way to spend Halloween 2023. And finally, Samba de Amigo is back again for my October list. Now, I thought this one might be launching last month, but now having been hands-on with the Quest 3 and having played the MR experience built specifically for that headset, I feel much more confident we'll be seeing Sega's Dancing Monkey mascot this month instead. It makes sense to get as many of the MR and exclusive upgraded Quest 3 experiences out as possible this month, in the launch window for the Quest 3. And Samba de Amigo was a surprisingly fun and refreshing one that I didn't expect to love as much as I did. Selling your new MR features with a Beat Saber style dancing game that the whole family can enjoy sounds like a smart move to me, so hopefully we'll see Samba launching sooner rather than later. And that is everything for October 2023. It's a jam-packed month. In this video alone, there are 20 titles coming out in the next 31 days. But that isn't everything we'll see. As always, some VR games drop with no notice at the very last minute, so don't expect these to be the only games you can play in October. And then obviously we also have the Quest 3. That's a huge moment for VR users. I'm massively excited for it. Honestly, do let me know down in the comments if you're going to be picking one up. I hope to have some proper hands-on impressions, more of a review style video very, very soon, so watch this space. Things are really heating up. October, November, December looking amazing for VR. Can't wait to jump into these games, and I hope you're excited too. I'll see you soon for another one, guys. Take care. Goodbye.